Welcome to Masterpiece of Trash, a segment where I take an anime and decide whether it should be held up on a mantle for the rest of time, or whether it deserves to belong in the garbage. This week I'm taking a look at the classic 1979 series, Mobile Suit Gundam. Now it's hard to not have heard of Gundam before. It held itself as one of the classics of Japanese animation, and it's really huge in Japan. You have the Gundam cafes, you have the giant Gundam statue which was previously found at Odaiba Bay, and most importantly you have the Gunpla model kits, a series of best-selling models started by this series, which have been one of its claims to fame and one of the reasons it's done so well. Now the franchise has had almost continuous releases since it started, however we're specifically looking at the original 1979 TV series. Spanning for 43 episodes, it's widely considered a classic. In a recent Japanese poll, it came out on top with almost second time as many votes, the second most popular series, Zeta. The show started a lot of trends and it really invented the real robot genre and is the inspiration for a lot of mecha shows we know today. However, just because it's a classic doesn't mean it's good. So let's have a look. Let's see if it's still held up today as well as we can hope, or whether it's fallen behind in the times and just left as sort of an overrated piece of history. Now first and foremost, the original 1979 series isn't actually considered to be the canon. The three movies making up its remake are. There were a lot of issues with the original series production. It was low budget, there were time constraints, and eventually due to poor viewership it was actually cancelled. Originally meant to run for 52 episodes, it was given a total episode count of 39, until the creators were able to argue another 4 episodes to finally finish off the series, which released later after the original ending. It was in fact the sales of the toys and models which proved the show to be popular and got it enough reruns to eventually build up its popularity to spawn a sequel and create the franchise we all know now. I'll start off by looking at the animation. Now for a 1970s show, there are going to be expectations going in. A lot of people purely can't handle that animation style. It's always struck me as kind of odd. People can watch Disney movies from the 30s and 40s and have no issue, but going back 30 or 40 years in Japanese animation isn't just possible for them. But to be fair, the animation in this show does hold up particularly well. It's very colourful with some really solid animation, especially during the action sequences. Not to say that this doesn't hold up throughout. There are many instances where the models are really terrible. Some of the animation is notably out of place. You can see people in the background and their foot is somehow in front of a chair in the foreground. It has its issues, but the animation isn't dreadful. So I expect a lot of people with problems watching older shows won't be as concerned when it comes to this. Next, to get it out of the way quickly, I'll go on to the music. Now the show has a really good soundtrack, from the cheesy 70s opening of Fly Gundam to the uplifting battle music of Gallant Shell. In particular, the show's soundtrack really knew how to get me excited. It went really well with the visuals, especially during action sequences, and I was always pumped to hear certain music kick in during the right moments. Now what is the plot itself? Well, one of the issues a lot of people have jumping into the Gundam franchise is they don't know where to start. They have like more than 35 years worth of content, and people assume there's going to be a huge lore which they're just not going to be able to get their head around. It's like the way I look at Warhammer. I see it, it's about space marines, they have guns, it looks kind of cool, but there's so much lore, and when people talk about it, it's all jargon to me. Gundam isn't actually too bad in that sense. A lot of the shows do tie together. The majority of them are spin-offs. You don't need to know the main story. They're kind of side stories along the main plot, or they're set in the whole own realities. Like G Gundam for example, it's about a big martial arts tournament on Earth which has absolutely nothing to do with the show. So to briefly describe the plot of Mobile Suit Gundam, it's set in the year Universal Century 0079. The new century started when people were sent into space. Due to overpopulation on Earth, colonies were built, similar to those you may see in classic sci-fi novels and movies. A self-sustained space station where people can live. Now over the years, people have started being born and dying in space until you have people who have never been to Earth. This is where things begin to arise. Prime Minister of one colony in particular, Lord Zeon Daikon, strives in order to gain independence for the people of space. He thinks that they should be their own separate people, not tied down by the Earth Federation. This comes into the show a lot more later, when this idea is more and more justified by the people that live in space and the evolution of mankind, as the show introduces the idea idea of new types compared to the people who live on Earth, who are begun to refer to as old type. However, the Earth Federation look at these claims and say, that's really stupid. You shouldn't be able to have space independence, you're just space traitors. So tensions are high when all of a sudden the Prime Minister is killed and the wealthy Zabi family end up taking over. They turn the space colonies area into sort of a dictatorship and start the Principality of Zeon. With their new weapons, mobile suits, they begin a war against the Earth Federation in order to gain independence. However, 9 months after the start of the war, over half the population of humans in general have been killed, mainly due to the horrendous acts performed by the Zeons. It's on one of the neutral colonies that we start. We meet young Amuro Wei. Amuro's a 15-year-old. He's a lonely technophile whose father is always away on military business. One day his father returns home as he's head engineer on a new experimental mobile suit that the Federation had been making. After Zeon forces attack, Amuro is forced to pilot this new mobile suit, referred to as the RX-78 or the Mobile Suit Gundam. Now this is where the show begins, and it covers the rest of the 1-year war between the Earth Federation and Zeon. Now there's a very, very clear metaphor to be made here with war. I mean, the Zeons are essentially space Nazis. One of a lot of the negativities which come against the director Tomino's choice in style is that he's way too on the nose with his ideals. It's obvious what he's getting at with this show, the terrors of war. He's very forward with character emotions, he doesn't really have any subtlety. This can be a good or bad thing depending on the situation. A lot of people struggle to pull this off. However, in this case, I find that it's actually dealt with really well. With the fast pacing of the show, it's sort of action to action per week, they try and get a lot done. You do see huge character growth throughout the show. The characters here too I find to be really well developed, from young pilot Amuro Ray, who goes through trials and tribulations becoming a soldier, dealing with the stress of the battlefield, dealing with killing others, to the young Captain Bright, who's forced into the helm of the wide base, has to lead these young soldiers with their lives on his hands. And one of the most notable and remembered characters is Shah Aznavour, the sort of anti-hero and kind of antagonist of this show. The characters are all really well developed and all set themselves apart. They're all really memorable. Shah in particular, he's charismatic. A lot of the show is based from his point of view. Now this is one of the show's greatest weaknesses. It's not a fight against bad guys. There are very clear good people on each side of the battlefield. Zeon soldiers will at one point be merciless killers, at other points they'll be helping civilians to survive. You begin to like a lot of the characters, which is why it's usually so heartbreaking to see even one of them be killed. The show raises a lot of questions about war, and to be honest, a lot of them are still very relevant today. One of the places the show kind of slips up is in its pacing. There are times where it becomes sort of a monster of the week sort of show. They're trying to sell toys despite the harsh and heavy tones throughout the show. And it is a little jarring. Most obvious when they're going, oh, we have to practice the formations. This is one of the things which is why the show is not considered canon compared to the movies. They took a lot of this out. They updated some of the visuals to remove that sort of aspect. There's even one episode of the show which the director himself had taken out of later DVD and Blu-ray releases because he hates it. And to be fair, it is a terrible episode in which Amuro ends up on an island. He finds 2 pilots tied up, dying, and then a Zeon soldier who has adopted children. It's meant to teach him about trust and how everyone can be good, even though the soldier had tied up 2 other soldiers and left them for dead, and he's super not trustworthy. Children constantly hate him for no reason. It's like they forgot what he previously wrote about in the episode and kept bringing it back. I mean, there are quite a few points in this series which are low points. However, as a whole, they're really overshadowed by the high points. So what can I say about Mobile Suit Gundam? It really has held up well over the years. It has issues, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a really fun watch. It's like watching your cartoons as a kid, however they're deep and meaningful. It brings up aspects of war which you don't see that often in shows that aren't specific heavy war movies, as well as bringing up things such as mental stress, a lot of mental issues. Though it was on the nose, I did find it a fascinating watch, and it's really flung me into the franchise as a whole. There's one part of the show in particular that I thought was very true to this, was when the son of Zeon's leader was speaking to his father. and was told that he reminded him of Hitler, a historical figure, and his son, who's about to go out and lead an attack, says, well, watch what this child of Hitler can prove. Then when he leaves, his father says, but son, Hitler lost. It's so on the nose. But that's kind of one of the things I love about this show. It's so enjoyable and brilliant, and it really does deserve its place as a classic among the franchise. So I'm going to continue saying that this is a masterpiece despite its flaws. It just holds up so well, it's still relevant, the characters are all great, the soundtrack is great, though it does have issues with being as old as it is. But it is a good place to start. It's not too overwhelming if you think you can handle it. The show is, at the end of the day, very deserving of its praise. So I'm going to give it 8.5 tiny, badly animated Gundam faces out of 10. And a recommendation to really try the show if you can. You won't regret it. That's been Western Otaku, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. You can check out my previous video about the recent film Your Name from the link here. So, until next time.